Hey guys, Del here, and today I'm going to talk about the colouring pencils I use. I see a lot of people always asking which colouring pencils to buy for working, and usually people start off with really affordable pencils and quickly find out that they don't get the coverage that they're after, that the colours are a bit drab. So I'm going to talk about the pencils that I use, and I'm going to show you through some different quality pencils and talk about just how to colour in general. So this tiny little icky smidge up here is really cheap, no brand pencils from a bookstore. It was a pack of 30 or so, and they were really cheap. So I'll just show you how these colour. I'm going to move that out of the way. So I press down lightly. They're not bad, you can see a bit of colour there, and the green one. But what you can't see is they don't blend very well. And if I press down, I need to press really heavy to get a good colour. And the texture that they colour with is not great at all. If I pick a few more out, there's a purple one. I'm pressing down really heavy and there's hardly anything coming out there. Here's a pink one. That's a bit heavier. That's also a risk when you buy cheap pencils, is some of them might be fine, others might not. Some of them, like, okay, this orange one has quite decent pigment. You can see it's coming out thicker than the rest, but generally there's not a great deal of colour variation. They don't colour very nicely. So the next ones I'm going to show you are Derwent Studio. Derwent Academy. I picked up a tin of 12. They are the cheaper end of the Derwent range, but they're still decent pencils. So you can see these are the cheap ones, and just move that across a bit. Excuse me. This is a purple one, so really light colouring. Already you can see, compared to this purple, it's much darker. And I'm pressing quite lightly here, and if I press harder, there's not much difference. So they're a bit difficult to do gradients with. If I press really lightly there and come down heavier, this shade is a bit better. And if I blend in here, you can see it blending nicer than here. You can see the scratch marks from the pencil, but over here it's not too bad blending. And these are quite nice to colour with. They're a little bit scratchy, but they do have decently vibrant colours. You do have to press down a little bit hard to get the bright colours out, to get a good solid colour through. But overall, they're not too bad. So, next up is Derwent Academy. I keep mixing these up. Derwent Studio 12. These are more expensive than the Academy pencils. Still reasonably cheap. Let's start with the purple. So that's the purple in the cheap pencils. That's the purple in the Derwent Academy, which looks kind of bluish. This is the purple in the Derwent Studio. The barrels are waxier, so they lay down colours smoother. Pressing medium hard here and getting a nice rich thick colour out. And they do gradients nicely. If I press really lightly and then get gradually heavier, you can see that's a decent gradient, and they blend well. If I go over this lightly with red and then come out this side, the colours are more vibrant generally than the Academy pencils. and the barrels are waxier, so they do have a nicer texture on the paper, and this is just normal printing paper, it's nothing special. And because of the waxy barrels, they do blend quite nicely. And you can get a good variation in gradients there by using different levels of pressure when you're colouring. So, Derwent Studio, not too shabby. Now the next ones I'm going to show you are my absolute favourites. These are Lyra Super Furby. You can see they are very large, very thick pencils. They have, I don't know if you can see on the camera, they have triangular barrels. If I upend that one, you should see that it's triangular, it's not focusing all the way up there. Compared to the Derwent pencils, you can see the Lyra ones are much bigger. They're more expensive. I buy them individually. They do sell them in packs. I've seen packs of 10 in the standard colour range, but I've been buying mine individually. And they're an absolute joy to colour with. So let's show you the purple, since I've been starting with purple there. So press down really lightly. I'm hardly using any pressure at all, and you can see that it's a nice colour there. If I start pressing down harder, it builds up well. And you can see so far it's quite porous, the texture of the pencil. However, if I rotate the pencil just to get a sharper edge on the paper, and I'm not pressing down as hard as I was with these to get the hard texture out, to get the thick colour. That's a really thick, bright block of colour. There's hardly any white showing through, it's not porous at all, it's pretty solid. And you can blend this in really nicely to make gradients. And circular motions help when you're blending. I usually try and get the gradient close with straight lines and then just do some circular motions over the edges. So I'm going to take this into a dark blue and just colour lightly over there and pull it up. So you can see without much effort at all, I was barely colouring there, it's blended nicely. I can make this thick too. So it transitions nicely from purple to blue there. And the light colours are nice and bright. They're very waxy nibs. They come out a lot like crayons actually. But very, very nice to colour with. Nice, bold, vibrant colours. Not much effort required to get the vibrant colours out. And they blend well. They're also good for blending in different pencils. So if you, like I have the Derwent Studio here, the waxiness of the Lyra pencils helps blend with the other not as waxy pencils. So that's Lyra Super Furby. They are my absolute favourites. And the last one I'm going to show you are Cretacolor Karmina. I also buy these individually, though I think you can buy them in boxes. They are slightly more expensive than the Lyra. I'm not mentioning prices here because I'm in South Africa, so it wouldn't be relevant, but you can look these up on Amazon. All of the pencils I've showed, they sell them on Amazon. So you can go to Amazon UK, Amazon.com, and find out how much they are in your region there. So these are the most expensive ones. Cretacolor Karmina. They're thin barreled, so good for detailed work. Nice smooth colour laying down there, not pressing very heavily. Nice gradients. And if I do press down heavier, I need to press down a bit heavier than I did with the Lyra, but they do make a nice solid patch of colour. And if I take this into Let's see, I have a reddish brown here. They blend nicely. So these are my second favorite. Primarily I use the Lyra but if I don't have a particular shade in the Lyra that I do in the Cretacolor, I'll switch, and they blend together nicely. So that's a bonus. And these also sharpen into nice long fine points. They're very good quality barrels. I haven't had one snap on me yet. Nice to colour with. Not quite as waxy as the Lyra pencils, but definitely waxier than the Derwent Studio. And they have a nice selection of colours, and they blend in well with other pencils. Just move that up a little, there we go. And they're nice to work with. They have a nice texture, decent pigment. Not hugely expensive, but they are perhaps a little more than some people might want to spend. But they are worth it if you want to do things like shading and nice smooth gradients. And another thing I'll quickly mention is, if you're doing gradients and shading, having a white pencil is very, very handy. If I grab one of the Lyra pencils, let's see. So when you're colouring one colour into the next, whichever colour you're layering on top will grab the pigment from the pencil beneath and blend it in. They'll work together. But if you're fading to white, there's no white there to blend with, if you know what I'm saying. It's just, you're just colouring with one pencil, there's no pigment underneath to catch up and blend. So the white pencil, it doesn't actually colour in white. If I put it down there, it doesn't do much. What it does is picks up the pigment from the pencil underneath. I don't know if you can see that there, but on the tip of the pencil, where I just went over the red there, there's a tiny smidge of red. Just get that off. So if you're blending to white, it's really useful to blend, to sort of smudge the colour you've been working with, make it nice and smooth. Hopefully you can see that coming out on camera. What it's doing is smudging the colour so that the texture is more consistent, there's less white space underneath the colour, and just works it nicely into the white. So that's a much smoother gradient there than I was able to get just by colouring quickly with the pencil by itself. And what you will need to do is, because it picks up the colour from underneath, you can see the tip of the pencil is some green on it now. Before you move to another colour, is just drag it across the paper to get the colour off so that the tip is entirely white again. So if you can't find a white blending pencil, really handy for making nice smooth gradients. So that's the pencils I use. That's a comparison of pencils going from cheap to reasonably high-priced, good quality artist pencils. And that's a very rough guide on how I colour and how I get the smooth gradients I do. So you do need to vary your pressure a lot, so practice with colouring with light pressure, merging through to heavy pressure to get the nice solid colours. And spending a little bit more for good quality pencils, if you're able to, really does help. But from the cheaper end of the good quality scale, I would start with the Derwent Studio and work your way up from there. Hope that's been useful and hope you've enjoyed watching. Thanks.